Hi, my name is Meghan Palanza. I'm the product manager, and we'll talk about the Sensa Investigation Hub. So we hear from a lot of our clients and prospects on the various challenges that they're facing with their financial crime platform. Obviously, we know there's an industry problem with the false positives and creating a huge investigation backlog. Dealing with siloed business units and data, a lot of times the transaction monitoring teams do not talk to the CDD teams, don't talk to the fraud teams. And because of that, investigators really aren't getting a holistic view of every customer or even what that subject risk is. And as obviously things beyond their control, there's a rapidly rising cost of remaining compliant because of the increased regulatory scrutiny. Regulations change, there are updates to forms that need to be done, so they're always trying to manage that process. And unfortunately, that falls on the investigators, who were then sometimes stuck with inefficient manual investigation processes. So how can technology help save these challenges? Here at SymphonyAI, we really do think that we've found a sweet spot of moving forward with kind of breaking down some of these barriers. Removing the siloed, we're really taking a new approach with Sensa Investigation Hub, because it's much more of a subject-centric view. Really pulling back, breaking everything into multiple different alerts and showing one subject and what suspicious activity are falling under them. We also obviously want to have the self-service compliance so that the managers can see, what are my workflows? How do I have control over those? Obviously auditing everything. How do we bring decision-making to the forefront so the financial crime managers have that power? And then, as we're making things more efficient, obviously we want to have automated SAR filings, which then just moves the SARs out the door faster and makes everything more efficient for the whole program. Accelerating the investigations, I'm going to talk about our Gen AI Copilot and how that's going to really help from an investigator as well as from a manager standpoint. And, obviously the IT team, what we also have heard is that IT teams don't want to manage, multiple different technology stacks anymore. Investigation Hub can be an overlay onto, third-party systems, but as well as the Sensa has a full engine program with CDD, fraud, transaction monitoring, customer screening, so you can have one technology stack as well. So part of this AI-powered investigation and reporting. We're going to talk a lot about reporting because that is, a lot of the results that need to be out of an investigation, especially for transaction monitoring and fraud, depending on what region you're in. So we want to be able to connect all the data, bring those multiple detection systems into one single platform. So the investigator, again, as I talked about that holistic view, has access to seeing all that. They can then make better and more informed decisions. And how do they do that faster? By giving them this Copilot. I'm going to walk through some of the use cases that we have for the Copilot. We have clients in almost every region of the world, so we're very flexible with what disclosure frameworks we have in place. We want to make sure that you can have a FinTrack, OzTrack, FinCEN, NCA, so that everyone, because every region does things slightly differently, and there are different reports, and we have to, we have to amend for that. And we have a lot of clients that file in multiple different jurisdictions, so we can't just limit it to one as well. And we want to give the financial crime, the manager, the ability to streamline workflows and really make their teams as effective as they can. So as I talked before about reducing complexity and removing silos, again, it's that subject-centric approach. And so bringing all of your data sources into one platform that then investigators have access to can really be a game changer, especially from just the standpoint of allowing the investigators to do what they were hired to do, which is investigate, versus them having to log into multiple different systems, core systems or other third-party, other vendor systems, for them to gather the information, bring it all into one system so that then they make the decision as to what needs to move forward or what doesn't need to move forward. We want to make the management of this process more effortless and efficient. We've created UI so that managers have the ability to determine who their subject matter experts are, prioritize the work for them, give them the actions based on their policies and procedures that they need to do, make sure that everyone has the right roles and permissions based on what subject matter expertise they have. And then on the other, give it to the investigators. They can just click from a queue and get that work directed to them. And based on the work that the manager has done, they're getting the right work at the right priority, and so that they can just move through and move beyond, so they can start really breaking down the backlog that we know happens quite a bit within financial crime programs. One way we do that is by creating workflows. We have created UI for managers to create the workflows themselves. Instead of having to go to the IT team or even relying on a professional services team, financial crime managers will be able to, again, as I said, determine who their subject matter experts are, pull those actions that are required from their policies and procedures so that the investigators can see them directly and have them right in front of them when they log in. Make sure that the work is prioritized correctly. What is the highest risk? What needs to get to that team first? And then can teams back each other up? Absolutely, have that capability. They will have this workflow, and then if there's changes to the workflow needed, they can make those changes within the UI. They don't have to go to the IT team. They don't have to do a change request to a professional services team. They have that control, and they can do that themselves. This kind of overall approach to really bringing in, and to bringing this data in to within the system for the investigators to have that available to them to see what the actions are required to get the highest priority is really going to elevate the consistency as well. So if you have a new hire who may have only been there 6 months, they're going to do the same great job that someone who's been there for 3 years that's been doing this for a really long time. So again, it's bringing that consistency to across the whole program and really allowing to get that holistic view of risk. It's Investigation Hub designed so that a transaction monitoring investigator can also see what the CDD risk is, may also be able to see what a PEP and sanctions match was. Again, this is all permission based, so depending on how your organization is set up, you can give a little bit of access or not much at all, or give them full access. But again, it's pulling back to see what is that subject's risk to my institution, not so much what happened in this alert, it's what is this customer or entity doing within my institution that is then raising the risk that I need to be concerned about, and then how do I move forward with that? And we want the investigators to have all that information and present it to them in a meaningful manner so that then they can make the right decision as to moving forward or not. So our GenAI powered Copilot has several use cases within Investigation Hub, and we continue to bring more in. And we've seen great results with just really the ability to accelerate investigations, because again, now the investigators from the query tool, they don't have to do an export to Excel, create a pivot table, and download, do that, and then do something in an outside system. They can go to the Copilot, ask these detailed questions, and then depending on what information they get back, maybe they need to ask another detailed question, and maybe they need to ask another one, and the Copilot will be there and surfaces information for them. Curated web searches, go out and do an adverse media search with an appropriate summary based on financial crime, maybe Ponzi scheme fraud, and give a relevant score as well for that subject. The summarize attachments, if you're working on especially like a KYC, you've got an articles of corporation, or maybe some extremely long document, you can ask the Copilot to generate a summary so that you can get an accurate and efficient way of reading and get better understanding of what is actually in that attachment that you're saving for evidentiary purposes. It's interrogating the data. You can ask data, even if you don't want to ask about the transactions, you can ask data about the other scoring. You can ask the Copilot about the accounts. You can ask the Copilot about what happened last month within the subject. And as the investigator is gathering all this information and getting the feedback from the Copilot, the investigator has the ability to tag it and save it and say, okay, this is helpful to me. I'm going to need this later when I need to create a summary. Or this piece, this transaction and this answer about that transaction is helpful to me. They have that capability between the web searches and the attachments and the query tool to save all those pieces, so they're building their narrative. And then instead of the investigator having to go to multiple different systems and gathering all that data and pulling it in and copy and pasting and maybe putting it to a Word document, they click a button as they've been saving it as they go through their investigation, and the Copilot will generate a narrative for them. Now, this narrative could be a case summary, it could be used for SAR reporting, or it could be for why they didn't file a SAR. Don't always have to file a SAR. because of this support that they're getting from the Copilot and being able to save these data points as they're making the decisions and they're deciding what's important and what's not important as part of their investigation, they then just have to click generate summary and the Copilot is going to type that up for them. And this is all saved in the audit log within the investigation. The next evolution of what we're looking at with the Copilot is agentic skills. So we're really looking to kind of bring in a research agent. How do we provide the information even quicker to the investigators? How do we get them a data packet? How do we get them a little more flexibility when we do adverse media searches? And then the context understanding. The Copilot is constantly new skills, prompts are being created for them, and part of that is, as you can see the example here, it's like, show me the suspicious activity. It's a pretty broad question, but we're able to, the Copilot is learning because it's been created, as you can say, as for financial services, financial crime platform. So, are there signs of structuring? Copilot's going to understand what structuring is, and the investigators can ask these relatively broad questions and then really start digging in as well. So we want to give them that capability. Another tool that we brought into investigation was our network analytics. This is going to surface the information on the relationships in a really meaningful manner for investigators to view. So they'll be able to hone in on identifying beneficial owners, they'll be able to see the transactional flow of funds, and then be able to click the links to see their connections and kind of expand the nodes. So as investigators are seeing what the relationships may be, they then may need to make the decision of, do I need to expand this investigation? Do I need to add more, multiple subjects to this investigation? They'll be able to do that, and they'll be able to pull that information from here and really be able to kind of then expand the investigation as needed. As I mentioned earlier before, global regulatory compliance is a key strategic part of ours. Every FIU has a slightly different suspicious activity report, suspicious transaction report, or an SMR, or GoAML, or an NCA. Investigation Hub will be flexible enough to be able to have multiple capabilities to have these regional reports available so that you can fulfill your regulatory requirements based on depending on which FIU you're in. So there'll be auto population from the Investigation Hub, customer account, transactional data, there'll be workflows based at the disclosure level, what actions are needed, what's the approval process at the disclosure level, and then an automatic, the electronic e-filing, depending on, again, each FIU is slightly different, what the end result of those SAR filings should look like, and then an upload over to the regulatory body. Obviously that changes with each region, so that's why we need to have this kind of global approach, because it is not a one-size-fits-all. Customers choose us for several reasons. As I said earlier, our enterprise-wide risk approach, really removing the silos. The Copilot has really been able to accelerate the investigations, bring on consistency, as well as make the investigation an overall more effective process. And a fully integrated disclosure framework so that no matter where you are in the world, or even if you have multiple jurisdictions that you have to report to, you will have that ability to you. We want to make sure that your AML program is 100% compliant. Thank you for your time today.